Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We're about to get started. Heard there's a football game on tonight at 8:15, right? Dolphins play? You can't hear me. Perfect. If somebody in the back can hear me, raise your hand. Blink twice. Okay, perfect. So you got it. Work. All right, without any further ado, we're going to have our illustrious President Scott kick off the meeting. So, Mr. Scott?
Well, thank you so very much. Good evening. I've taken the precaution of writing down my words just so that they were documented. And there's some rules. So I'm just going to say, just bear in mind that I'm assuming that the applause is me and not the Joe. That probably you'd accord me the same thing when I read out some rules. Okay, is that good? Hutch, you're always in my corner. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for being here. We want to recognize Mayor Birch, who is here. Mayor George Birch. Councilmember Charles. Members of our Planning and Zoning Board. Chairman Bolton, I saw him. And board members O'Hara, Spurk, and Napier. Good evening to everyone. Thank you again for being here and welcome. We're so grateful that you took time to come tonight to assist us as we craft community residential regs that will provide guidance, future development, that will preserve the neighborhood character that we all cherish in Miami Shores Village. And I say that because the last time we were in this room, it was a hot mess, wasn't it? It was, yeah. So special thanks again to the Planning and Zoning Board, also, who met earlier this week to discuss the proposed draft community regulations code among themselves. It's such a joy, it's so good when you get together and you have conversations and you come to a consensus. Because I'll just tell you that I was one of those who said to members of the board, why do you need to meet? So in all honesty and transparency, I was against it at first, but then I saw the beauty of it and it went along. I said to Deputy Manager Gunn, I'm happy that this is happening. So thank you to the PNC board. And thank you also to all the people who took the time to review the code and to give their feedback. We appreciate your insights, we appreciate your insights. As I've said before, this is not perfection, and we didn't expect it to be perfection. We were tasked with bringing a document forward that was vetted legally and within best practices of the planning and zoning discipline. The comments and input we have received thus far have been taken seriously. We heard from the PNC board on Monday, We also heard from we also heard about front yard setbacks, including incentives so that we can make it more attractive to get the product that we want in the CR district. We heard about BUD. We also received insight into what people like in other communities and want to see more out here in the shores. This, again, is not the final draft. We're in the beginning of writing this code, and after tonight, people may still comment on the website. It has been on the website for 6 weeks. I'm going to applaud staff for that because I'm just saying to you, my shores, we listened. And we were able to get something out with enough time for you to look at it and give your comments. So thank you so much. There will still be at least one other meeting of the PNC board to finalize and codify the results of the meetings over the next several days. So until the residents and planning and zoning board are satisfied, the code will not be forwarded to the council for consideration. We're just saying it's going to come to some sort of agreement when we come to that. Okay? So to come up with a draft, we look at the shores existing code, surrounding communities, and best practices in planning for town-home communities. And nobody on the team, I'm saying it again, has endeared themselves to one side or another. I'm hearing that this person's endeared to this person is way holding to that. Excellent Scott knows nothing about that. I dare say it's not so. We have looked at this from a very professional standpoint and welcome with open arms any and all input. I ask that you please participate fully. We're counting on a robust discussion tonight, and we are operating on your good faith that if you have represented yourself as a resident or stakeholder, that you in fact are. We collected your names and addresses so that we may keep good records of all those who attended tonight. Stakeholders, including village property owners and residents and adjacent property owners of the CR District, are invited to share their input during this workshop. I have one question to ask. How many people plan to speak? Please. I mean, you can change your mind, but how many plan to speak just now? Okay, sweet. So I can cross over what I was planning to say next. Okay, so here it is. This is the part where I said, don't egg me, don't boo me, don't stone me. Okay, listen up carefully. Stop the touching. To ensure a productive and respectful environment, please maintain decorum by keeping comments concise, relevant, and respectful of others' viewpoints. Not bad, right? Now, if we go into looking at section 6C of the public participation portion of our rules, it says, to maintain a smooth and respectful flow of discussion, we also kindly ask that there's no clapping, sharing, or other audible responses. Thank you. Instead, if you agree when the point is made, feel free to show support by quietly raising your hand or waving. This will help ensure that all voices are heard equally and without disruption. Thank you so much. I was worried about that part. Some housekeeping items. During the first part of this evening and throughout Joe's presentations coming up next, there will be time for you to answer questions. And during the second half of the evening, we'll take public comments. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes for public comments. I did that based upon the amount of people who said they wanted to speak. Okay? And regarding repetition, if there are groups or there are folks who would like one person to speak on their behalf, please do so. That's it. Thanks again. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cardino. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thanks, Desmond, for the great introduction. So now we know the ground rules and I can skip past my presentation. So thank you all for being here. This is critically important. We're going to get you in a nice place tonight, get some great input. I'm going to talk a little bit about a few things tonight. This is kind of the outline of where we're going. But let me just talk about where we stand in this process. We are really in the middle part of where we are. I think we're probably a little bit closer to the beginning than we are to the end. Step one of our process started way back in June, my process. I know you guys have been doing this for quite some time. We listened, our job was to listen. We listened to stakeholders, went out a little bit in the community, figured out what we heard, what people wanted to make the board, the elected officials, and some citizens. And our task was then to write a first draft of an ordinance, and we did that, and that's kind of what we're exploring tonight. Our job, where we are now, is to listen again. And this is a more fulsome, thorough listening exercise where we're bringing our first draft to you in this workshop. And what we need to do after this is kind of fold those comments, that understanding that we've got about what you want to see within the community, back into the ordinance. And I think our job is to repeat that until we get it to where you all need it to be. This is, the step is about to consolidate and to build consensus. And we're going to keep doing that. And I think my experience with this is going through an iterative process like this, we're able to build consensus probably about 90 or 95% of the items that we'll discuss. There'll be things that we just simply can't build consensus on. And at that point in time, we'll be satisfied. We'll recommend that this go to the board for a vote. And the boards, that the council will have to do the work that they get paid all that money for, and to make the tough decisions like they're going to be doing. Again, gaining consensus is our job. Our primary task to start this off was to support the comp plan community residential district with an objective zoning code, and that's what we're doing. And so we know we're working on a process that has been long in the works. It may have been stalled for a while this year, and I truly believe, and I think you all believe it too, we have a lot of work to do, and it's important that we do it together as we go through this. Let me iterate that this is your zoning code. This is critical. There's no right or wrong with the zoning code. The state can't necessarily tell you what to do, except for the fact that you have a zoning code. The county can't necessarily tell you what to do. This is one of the things that is almost purely local in nature. This is up to you. We're not modifying a district here. We're creating it from scratch, so we have a lot of latitude. We don't have to worry about taking property rights or anything that. So this is an upside down house. If you choose to want to zone an upside down house, we can figure out how to do it for you. And that's because this is your zoning code. In the end, you're going to vote on, boards are going to vote on it, you're going to give your opinion, and it's going to get approved, and it's going to be your code. And if you don't know what you want, zoning is relatively complicated, as we're going to go through this tonight. It's our job to figure it out, and that's the step, one of the primary steps in doing that is right here. So, before we begin, I wanted to calm everybody down. This is a picture of puppies. Generally relaxing. The manager said, stakeholders, including village property owners, residents, and adjacent property owners, CCR, are invited to share their input during this workshop. I have some other rules of engagement that we're going to, these are kitty cats. They're also very calming and peaceful. Look at the one in the middle. He's like sleeping, just woke up from a nap. Again, our goal is to have a vigorous but collegial debate. I've broken this presentation down into two halves. The first half is going to be relatively structured. It's going to be interactive. We're going to ask you questions. You're going to respond by raising your hands. We're going to take a couple comments back and forth. We've got a little bit of a survey that you've got in front of you. It looks like this. And there's comment cards on the back and all that type of stuff. It's going to be focused. In the second half, if you all don't get bored, in the first half will be an interactive questions from you, where I'll give everybody a couple minutes. A manager says 3, I see 2, but I got the microphone, so we'll debate that out as we go through the process. And you'll ask questions. So when we get into the process, it's important you address me, don't address the neighbors, don't get personal. The manager said no cheering except for the end, no personal attacks, no headbutts, no rabbit punches, don't hit below the belt, those types of things that we go through. So let me get started with the substantive aspect of this. The first thing we need to understand, just as a starting point, is what is zoning. Land development in anywhere in the nation has 3 critical processes. First is your comprehensive plan, second is your zoning code, and third is your site plan. At this point, we have one thing. We have the comprehensive plan. That was the thing that is done. Now, the comprehensive plan tells you what can go where. what use, residential, what density, 13 units an acre, that's what it does. Zoning tells you how that thing can go on the property. We don't have a zoning code yet. All we have is a comprehensive plan. Zoning is the exact rules for development. How it goes there, the height, the setbacks, the color, the open space, those types of things. That's what we're going to define. We're going to start to define tonight. The next step after those rules are put in place is a site plan. That's when an applicant comes into the process, interprets those rules, and then draws a picture that conforms to those rules. So that obviously hasn't happened yet since we don't have number 2. Again, zoning influence and policies, the comprehensive plan, it is one of those things that is completely under the control of the city, meaning you guys. The more on zoning, we got a bit there. Just to set the table for where you are, what you all did in recent past was approve the comprehensive plan for the CR district, the community residential district. And that says a couple of things. That's intended to accommodate a coordinated and integrated balanced range of residential, not mixed use, residential uses. For a single family residential, it has a zoning or a density of up to 6 dwelling units per gross acre. An attached townhome and multifamily dwelling use at a density of up to 13 dwelling units per gross acre. Residential uses are permitted at a floor area ratio, which I'll explain a little bit later, of 1.0. So these are inalienable. These are effectively your constitution, which is your comprehensive plan. Those are the things that are a given right now. They can be achieved through a site plan if they can be achieved within the rules of the zoning code. These things are effectively what makes up your zoning code. You see them on the boards up here. But in a zoning code here, we have really 5 different buckets or areas where we put things in. And underneath in those buckets, we have these bullet pointed words. And once we put numbers in each of these words, we will have a zoning code. And the words on your survey, right? Once we're able to fill out these numbers, your zoning code will be set. So there's a long way to go from between here and there. And you'll see that on your survey. You've got what we have proposed in our first draft of the zoning code, and then we have blanks. And as we walk through this, you may or may not be able to fill out those numbers. You may or may not know what they mean. But we're not asking you necessarily to be totally specific because, again, it's relatively complicated. And when you start to tinker with a number here, you start to impact a number there. But what our job is to kind of interpret ranges and be able to take that input back, understand generalities, and then kind of put them into a zoning code that makes sense. What we've heard so far through our limited stakeholder engagements that we've had over the last couple of months, I'm going to tell you, we've heard preserve the character of Miami Shores. We've heard we need a fully transparent process happening quickly with significant public input. Stick to the density allowed in the comprehensive plan. You want ample green spaces, ensuring the compatibility with the existing Miami Shores community, even relative to the cost of a unit. An interconnected street grid, roads, parks, and infrastructure that should, or at least considered to be shared by all. Maintain consistency, particularly in parking, setbacks, front yards, and landscaping. Meet concurrency requirements, meaning that you need infrastructure at the time of development. Potentially provide incentives for developments that align with community goals, good sized front yards, buffering individual properties. I want to take a couple of seconds to answer a couple of questions that we got at the Planning and Zoning Board workshop on Monday night. The first was about a planned unit development. The second was about community residential district and size and any potential applications. We discussed a planned unit development, and in thinking about it subsequent to that meeting, planned unit development is something that is a zoning tool that's a flexible zoning category. I think the takeaway from that conversation was looking at a collaborative process, a process that potentially, if you have an applicant in the system where you got a concept plan that was introduced to the community, a concept plan would be agreed on or not agreed on, but agreed on with the community, and then they go step back and put zoning numbers to that. That's a good way to kind of see what you're getting before you actually get it. The way we're doing it now is traditional zoning code. You put the numbers up, and then the potential applicants that come through would have to conform to those numbers, and you never really know what the site plan is going to look like until the applicant is done. But then your zoning code is baked and done already. What the point of a planned unit development is it's just a more flexible, collaborative process involving a concept of use zoning than eventually site plan. And it's just a little bit more flexible, and in my opinion, right when you have potential development on a site happening at the same time. It can be done to standards. You would simply set standards like we talked about, what we heard in the input, whether it's connectivity, integrated to open space, large yards, heights, those types of things. The applicants go and fit their way into that. Let's talk about this is the collaborative process that we talked about. You can have eligibility, a minimum area of 5 acres, consistency with the comp plan, unified ownership, measuring public facility and service impacts, internal compatibility, external compatibility, all those things that govern the concept of how the initial plan is put together. So I just wanted to flesh that out a little bit. And then the elephant in the room is, what is the CR district, and and is there a potential application? So that was asked this. Yeah, the CR district is, you can see it on the graphic up here. It's 28 acres of land. It's all that land inside the red box. Or again, red box, or black box. Either way, our comp plan rules say that that land can be developed in the CR district in 5-acre increments. There is a potential application out there, but that application size is the full 28 acres. So just to get that behind us. Okay. So what are we talking about as we start to get into the zoning portion of this? We're trying to really define character in the village here. This is pictures of character. What we're trying to further define as we refine this is getting into the townhome category. This graphic kind of shows you where townhomes kind of fit in the continuum of development. For the most part, our community is based on single-family residential homes. The red roof areas are things that we call the missing middle of housing. These are things that we don't typically have enough of in Miami-Dade County. These types of things are necessary in growing communities, maturing communities, because they provide a diverse set of housing stock that is generally used. If you have more of this type of thing, it can help you combat the affordable housing crisis that we're all faced with these days. Townhomes are in there. The definition of townhomes as we have it in our plan is an attached one-family dwelling unit. It's a one-family dwelling unit. That is a group of 3 or more such units, provided, however, that 10% of the total number of dwelling units in any site plan may be developed in 2 dwelling unit groups. So essentially what that means is you want these things to be developed in groups of 3 or more, but we would allow up to 10% of that to be developed in 2 units, or almost like a duplex, just to fit site standards, anomalies on the site, or things like that. So we limit that 2-house grouping to the max of 10% in that type of development. So here's our first question tonight. You just raise your hand and answer it. I hope you can see these graphics. These are just light graphics of different places within the state of Florida that we've never necessarily looked at. And this is, not scientific. It's trying to gauge different opinions on form, because ultimately form is critically important to this. And you're free to raise your hand or shout out or do whatever you want. There's pictures of Winter Park, Delray Beach, Seaside, Florida, Jupiter, Boca Raton, or Jupiter again. Is there anybody that's particularly fond of any one of these? Is there anybody that likes the Winter Park example? Anybody? A couple folks like. What do you like most about that, do you think? Right, you don't like boxes. Okay, so articulated buildings are things that flow in and out that may be variable in the. Okay, vintage, perfect. Anybody like the Delray Beach example? Kind of she loved it. The seaside example, anybody partial to that? All right. We go to our comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan has a main goal in our future land use element, and that's a quality and balanced land uses to maintain the residential character. We're planning for the village in the future. We're protecting the single family areas. We're focused on redevelopment and renewal. We're trying to eliminate inconsistent uses. We're protecting resources, discouraging sprawl, and trying to be innovative in our regulations. So our main objectives as we write this code are focused on those things. Again, what we're trying to do through these regulations is define these 11 categories here. So the zoning code and the comprehensive plan need to align with one another. This is the site that I talked about earlier. This is the 28-acre site. It is all of that stuff inside the red boxes. All of that, should we approve this zoning code, will be up for development. Development can happen in a number of different ways. The physical form of the development in the zoning code can happen in a number of different ways. There are things that are master plan communities, townhomes that are integrated with amenities and common open spaces. There are pocket neighborhoods, which the homes are kind of clustered, arranged around courtyards or gardens. And there are traditional development. That's when these developments fit into they fit on a form of a street-gridded network. And I'm going to give you examples. We've looked at examples. There's an example up near Jupiter called Abacoa. Abacoa, someone pointed us to Abacoa a while back. This is an example. It's huge. It's like 6,000 residents. It's big as some cities. It's over 3 million square feet of commercial space. It's an example of a fully master planned community. It's kind of cut out of a giant swatch of land and developed in one master plan. It doesn't necessarily integrate with anything around it because largely there's nothing else around. There's this development in Homestead, Florida, Villa Verde, which is also developed on a similar, on 6.5 acres. It fits into an existing community, but because it's on 6 acres, it was planned as a unit. And it's got its own street network, it's got its own things like that. And there's something even more granular that's in Miami Springs, and that is a thing called 400 park lots. That's just sits, it's about 0.35 of an acre, and that's something they can integrate right into the street pattern of that community. So there are 3 different ways of doing this. There's a fully master plan, there's a pocket neighborhood, and there's a traditional development. And here are the graphics. Is there anybody that's anybody's got a preference on any of those? And how many people would want a fully master plan community? Can you show of hands if you have the ability to do that? All right, 1. Okay, so we're off to 2. We're off to pocket neighborhoods. Anybody have preferences? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 of you are in 13 the pocket neighborhood. What about the traditional development? Something that fits granular into the community. About 20 people like the pocket neighborhood. We looked at things that fit into the context of the community, local examples that we have. We looked at Miami Beach, we looked at Palmetto Bay, Coral Gables, and Pinecrest. These are examples of where townhouse districts were fit into existing street networks and kind of come up organically, not master planned within the community. And you can see these are the land use maps where they are. They're kind of the pink things, and the rest of the area surrounds. This is a graphic of Miami Beach where the townhomes and the resident and the single family residential are kind of right next to one another. And you'll see the example here that it fits into a traditional block that is there. Similarly, we have that there in Coral Gables where you can see right across the street in a heavily landscaped environment are single-family homes, and then there's townhome development. This is Pinecrest example of where they've done that as well, where it will fit in, and then in Palmetto Bay. So it's possible. I understand that we've been talking about an integrated street grid connectivity with the rest of the community. It can be done. There are examples of it, and they're beautiful examples, and those are higher end communities. And these are kind of graphics, examples of what those townhomes look like in those communities. And so we have, these are just pictures of those. Does anybody have opinions on those? Can you see those examples well enough, or are they they're too small? There's the Miami Beach Coral Gables. Does anybody have anything they like, dislike about these? Excuse me? Yes, half of them are villages. No, that's the half that's not a village. You picked the wrong half. Pinecrest and Palmetto Bay are villages. Village is really a name. Pinecrest has about 18,000 people. Palmetto Bay's got about 40,000 people. Miami Beach has about 70,000. I hear you, and I agree with you. These are, whether it's a village or not, these are the ones. Yeah, Pinecrest is a village, and so is Palmetto Bay. I guarantee it. All right, anyway, yeah, so yeah, I agree, it's a state of mind, and the point of this is that it is possible to integrate a townhome product through a zoning code into an abutting an existing single-family neighborhood. So it can be done. It can be done relatively seamlessly and buffered, right? And those are the things we want to get to as we get into the zoning code and the buffering. These are the things that we have to live up to when we do specifically our zoning code here. We're permitting the residential institutions within the surrounding areas. Obviously, we're promoting sustainable development, enhancing walkability. We need to account for massing, height, and setbacks. We need to preserve the natural vegetation, protect residential areas from noise and light nuisances, and expand housing options. It's got to be walkable. We need landscape regulations and parking regulations. So we need to get into these zoning categories and then open up our discussion. We're going to try to put numbers to each of these categories. First, plot standards, density standards, building configuration, building expression, buffer realm, and then fill in the plots. So,
Can I ask a question?
yes, sir.
Who owns the current 28 acres?
Who owns the current? Somebody answer that question. Is that the university? Barry University.
And does the landowner have any say with respect to what they will accept on the land?
Yes.
So we could go through this entire exercise and they might say, we're not interested in selling to them.
It's not their decision, but they can say they're not interested in selling it, yes. Yeah, absolutely, yes. The ultimate decision on what goes into the zoning code is made by the city council. Everybody has input, particularly property owners. Their input weighs very heavily. It's a business decision whether a property owner wants to sell that private property, right? They can sell, they can not sell, they can do whatever they choose to do with their property. That's none of our business as local government. All right? Okay, so we're going to talk about site area, lot area, and open space. Those are critical categories. I kind of compared what we have proposed in these areas with some of the local examples that integrate their townhome districts into the community. Our plot size is minimum of 5 gross acres. You can see that is a little bit smaller or a little bit larger than most of these other places. Pinecrest is, Miami Beach is 5,000 square feet, Pinecrest is 7,500 square feet, Palmetto Bay is an acre, so on and so on. It's like 44. Whoa, bad sign. We're supposed to do that when we get in trouble, then we leave. The acre's about, what's an acre? 5,200 square feet? 43 wide. Acre's big. It's like 4 of those. 43 bucks.
Good job, Nancy.
Yeah. Thank you. You want to help? You can come. Okay. Yeah, so typically we do that because in situations like this, because you're developing, your potential to develop is a 28 acre plot of land. So it's not necessarily like it's fitting into the existing block structure of the community. You can see it on the graphics, that it's a pretty big parcel that's being redeveloped. So it's not necessarily organically coming out of the existing street grid. Now, it would be different if you were further south in the village and took a block and said, okay, this block's gonna go townhome. That would be more organic. You would set more of the rule. That's what these other communities have done, and that's why their numbers are that way. But as you can see, as you get down from the plot size, that you're looking at common open space. And you can see that the other communities are asking for a bit more. We're suggesting a minimum of 20. And like Miami Beach has 50%, Pinecrest 35%, Palmetto Bay 30, 50 for recreation, and Coral Gables has 25%. So is there anybody, would you rather be lower, higher than average? What's the general feel of you guys? If you have any, higher. You'd like to go higher. Higher open space. Is 50% too high? Is 50%, is that about right? Anybody? Depends on where. Well, it's on where the open space is internal to the. Right. Okay. Yeah. But that's a great question. So would you use the open space to buffer? You would use the open space kind of to buffer the single-family residential neighborhoods. Great idea. We talked about a parcel area, and that's kind of the area that it needs the home with the individual house. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear. Where did you say?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
I got a question. I see the different areas. Is this process anything like the Lanier right here off 119th Street and 24th Avenue
Is it anything like that?
area? Yes. Is the build out process, is it anything like that?
No.
Because these are 1,200 square feet, those are 1,600.
Okay, what we don't know yet, because we're forming the rules. Once we get these rules down, then that's when the potential applicant will be able to build to. So, for instance, if we were to suggest a lot of 1,000 square feet, that's what the builder would have to do. So I'm not familiar with that, but they're based on a set.
There is a Lanier built on 119th Street, Westview, with a big golf course was there. I've been born and raised all my life.
Gotcha.
And they're over there. Have anybody seen that? Have anybody been over there?
Right.
Do y'all like them?
No, it needs to be better than that.
Okay, hold on, I'm gonna get to you 1 second. Okay, I understand. All right, hold on, let me stop and reframe the conversation. This has nothing to do with Lennar at all.
I know, but I'm saying, we trying to compare to everybody else, and right down the street from us, it exists.
Well, I don't know, I haven't looked at that, what I'm saying
Check out,
is,
it's 119th
I will check
Street,
it out.
24th Avenue, 27th Avenue.
what I'm
I've
trying
been
to
over
do,
there,
I got you.
and it's scary. I mean, you should see that.
I know.
And square footage you're talking about here is much less, and you're talking about more congestion, more people there.
Okay,
It does not fit in.
I know, but
This does
hold
not.
on, let's remember, we're setting the rules for development. Lennar, that we don't have a plan, as far as I'm concerned, but we're setting the rules. Whatever we set, you all set, will become the rules, and whatever applicant comes in will have to develop to those rules.
I understand that, sir, but I'm asking you a question.
Yes.
Okay, I've been living in Miami Shores for 34 years.
I got you.
Okay, I'm a single family home with a nice lot of land, beautiful sidewalk.
Yeah.
It's not congested. You're talking about something that's very tight. You're talking about an atmosphere like apartments.
Oh, I got
I'm asking you, is it that way?
no. I gotta tell you,
It's not single family homes, but it is, the pictures you showed us,
we don't have the rules. We are in the rule-making process, so
we're trying to create rules
Yes.
for something to approve.
yes,
That's
no,
what
we're
we're
trying to create rules so that when an applicant comes in, they can play by those rules. So the fact of the matter is that the permission to build townhomes and multifamily has been given through the comprehensive plan. That is your past decision. That is past us. It's not up for debate. The density of what can be there, if an applicant were to come in and build single-family homes, they could build it to 6 units an acre, which matches the existing community. If an applicant came in and built townhomes or multifamily, they could do 13 units an acre. It's not up for discussion because it's passed.
Okay,
That's
I
what we bought
understand
out of the
that, I
comprehensive
understand,
plan.
but what I'm asking you,
All right,
we say 1,200 square foot. Most of a comfortable living home is 1,800 square foot.
okay. That's
So what
where-
you're saying is we're trying to come up with a plan
Yeah,
to build them so they can fit with our community,
yeah.
okay?
Huh?
That's what you're saying.
Okay, so you're a little bit ahead of me, but you're on the size of the unit, and you're voting for larger units. And I'm gonna get to that in a minute. But that's very important. I understand where you're getting at, and so your vote would come down for larger unit sizes. Understood?
Absolutely,
Okay.
it's gotta look good, it can't.
I got it. I appreciate that. Yes,
1,200
sir.
square foot, no,
Got
not
it. You in the back, and then, hold on. You in the green. Thank you.
Educate all of us,
Yeah.
is if we could compare it to what that project ended up doing.
Yeah.
If you could find the details,
so-
what's the density?
I can do that. I will do that. The complicated part here, and really why I thought the suggestion of a collaborative plan, zoning code would be important, is because in a traditional zoning code, you put the rules together first, and then somebody goes and interprets those rules and draws a site plan. You don't know what it looks like until after you've set your zoning code. If you were to be collaborative, right, in the process, then somebody comes in and says, hey, I have this thing, do you like it? You look at pictures, and that's why we're relying on pictures from other places, because we're trying to gauge scale. And so an applicant would come in and say, I got this thing, I got these pictures, and you would say, no, I don't like the pictures that I do, or tweak it. Once you're satisfied with the pictures, then they can put zoning to that. And so it's really hard when you've got a potential applicant with you at the same time to put a traditional zoning code together, because in a sense, it ignores, it takes input from that applicant, but you can't see what you're getting. And so I understand what you're saying, and that's why I think if we want to have a discussion about a more collaborative process, I think it's a good idea to have that discussion. Ma'am, you had a question.
So I think where the confusion is coming in is that we're looking at a chart, okay?
Yeah.
But just like you have the aerial view, if you want us to vote on, we don't know what 20% of a common space looks like aerially. We don't know what it looks like from the front. We don't know what it looks from the side. We don't know what anything built out looks like. So if you would give us examples of what a built out space is 50% versus 20% versus 55%, otherwise,
Okay.
we don't know.
Got it, understood. What I'm gonna, and that's why I was kind of saying, we're probably a little bit closer to the beginning of this exercise than we are to the end, because I can't necessarily, every time I have an idea, spend $1,000 on a drawing that you hate. So I want to kind of refine this stuff into some parameters after I introduce it to you all as a group. I'll get you in a second. Well, after we refine this into as a group and see, if 20% is way too low, I'll focus around where I think you guys are headed, and then I'll draw the pictures. So we'll get you that, and so we can start to see that stuff work its way out. But I necessarily have to kind of have this first interaction with everybody, because we haven't talked before. Maria?
I'd just like to ask, we do have single-family regulations in our zoning code.
Yes.
We do have multifamily regulations in our zoning code. This allows townhomes and duplexes as well, which we already have in the village in different places. So my question is, if we already have regulations, why have we not even started with them as the minimums? I mean, why are we distinguishing townhomes separate from multifamily, when the multifamily is saying in A1, width is 75 feet, area is 7,500 square feet, and then it's talking about a floor area ratio of 0.5. Then it talks about the minimum lot units, the dwelling units, and it says for a single unit, 1,400, and then it goes to 2 unit, a bedroom, whatever, would be 1,800 square feet, and then 3 would be 2,200 square feet. for more would be 2,600 square feet. So my question is, why don't we, I mean, as a reference, I'm not saying that you can't have completely new regulations in this area, but is there a reason why we're not even addressing the regs that we have?
Well, we're rewriting kind of concurrently with this, the R districts. So we're in the process of doing that, and as I start to look at that, it's there are tweaks that are happening inside the district, but I think it's more of a consolidation. And so, you know, our task here was to fit the townhomes into the CR district, and that's kind of what we're trying to do right now. Yeah.
One other, just a clarification. My understanding was that our flume carved out institutional land of this 28 parcels, that for Doctor's Charter and the podiatry school. So my understanding was that the CR district only encompassed the land outside both schools.
Of those schools.
Yes.
So I'll confirm that, but yeah, I'll confirm that and map it for you. It makes sense. Yes, ma'am.
The cafeteria you're sitting in is within 5 acres of space that is a ground lease agreement with Berry University for the school in perpetuity. So you will not be looking at 28 acres of residences, you will be looking at 23 and a half. So I just want to make it clear, because a school looks a lot different than a whole lot more homes.
Okay, yes, right, gotcha. So just to confirm, and I look at the map, there are two significant pieces inside the CR district that will remain institutional. And I'm assuming that that's going to be this facility and the other building that's also here. So those will remain, and whatever development happens in whatever form, single family, townhome, or multifamily, will happen around those facilities. Okay, so, gotcha on that. All right, well, let's go to we wanted to talk a little bit about open space and amenities. Are there any types of open space or amenities that were more preferable? Did you like bocce courts? Did you like soccer fields? Did you like baseball fields? Any opinions on that, or does it really matter?
What about the size? We skipped over the size.
I'm sorry, so the man in the back first, the
You
man
skipped over the size.
size of these things?
Yeah,
Okay. Thought you were bored of that already. All right, we did, but we only have 4 hours till midnight. We skipped over, or we did the plot size, like I said, the common open space we did, but the parcel area is the area with the lot. Area of the lot, you can see that we're saying 1,000 square feet. Coral Gables, or Miami Beach simply gives a lot width of 50 feet, but sometimes you can get down to 25 feet. The other communities are 1,200 square feet, 1,200 square feet, 5,000 in Coral Gables, much larger, 2,000 in Miami Springs. So, you know, that's really just the lot that lies underneath the building that you won't necessarily see, because these will be connected in groups of 3 or more. If you have a preference that they be larger or smaller, I'd love to hear it. Anybody got a preference on that? And by the way, in the back of your survey, on the back of that paper you have, on the front of that paper you have in front of you, are these questions. You can fill in a number. When you fill in that number, you can either say larger or smaller, or fill in an exact number. We're going to take those, tally them up, and we're going to kind of interpret that as we go through the rest of our zoning exercise. So, anything? Go ahead.
Is there a reason why we're not designating the width of the lot like we do for everything else at 75 feet?
No, we can do that. We can do lot width. You see other communities do lot widths, others do square feet. Again, there's no, not necessarily right or wrong in this. This is the way most townhomes are developed in the square footage, but lot width is certainly a way to do that. Sir, you in front, you yelled at something here?
You had already rolled to the next.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I'm back.
My answer is, I'd like green grass somewhere on my side of the village.
Got it. What side are you on?
I'm going halfway.
green grass.
So you're welcome to do a walking tour of what that street looks like. I'll be more than happy to show you.
I would be more than happy to go. Just think, I'll be there. Make me coffee. I like it extra strong. What? Have good fire alarm? Open space, minimum parcel open space. We're talking about 10% of the area, all except for Coral Gables. They don't really even count it. Palmetto Bay just gives you a little bit of 400 square feet, which isn't significant. Any comments on that? All right, you made me go back to the slide. I knew nobody wanted to comment on it, and that was right. All right, I trust my intuition. Back to amenities.
A playground,
A
big
Big
playground
playground. What do you want on
with parking
it?
solutions.
Parking on a playground?
Bike, yes, bicycle, accessible, walking,
Okay, so an adult playground or a child's playground?
Yeah.
a child's playground. We have a lot of children, we have no facilities for them.
Okay, I just confused me with the bicycle. I know there's bicycle gables that have like adult exercise equipment, like.
No, I'm talking about like having some hooks so you can
Got it.
park your
Okay, so
bicycle.
a state-of-the-art children's playground.
Thank you.
Got it. They're providing, yes, ma'am. Yeah,
But an adult area too, where you could either have some adult, equipment, to do some exercises or a pathway or a walking path.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that can be integrated in. A community garden, botanical or vegetable? Or animal, vegetable, or vegetable?
My daughter's out on the south side of Chicago, near Hofstra Park, University of Chicago, and they are trying to bring some dangerous and some not so dangerous communities together around the community garden. The one theme I hear all the time in Miami Shores is that sense of community. And Lord knows, it doesn't seem like it all the time, but when we came together on this issue, we really showed a sense of community that Miami Shores has. And there's nothing like a community garden.
Got it.
And I'm talking vegetables, yes,
Okay, vegetable.
to bring people together. It's remarkable. If you ever get a chance to go and really go to a really vibrant community garden and just sit there for a while, you'll see what it's like.
Yeah, it's kind of peaceful. That's really sophisticated stuff. I appreciate that. That's a great comment. I'm gonna go off script for a little while, since everybody was before. What do you think about the infrastructure? Should this be public or private? Private? There are private parks, private roads, anybody? No?
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I have a question. Can I
Yes,
ask a
sir.
question?
Yes, ma'am.
I was under the understanding that the amenities would be public to all Miami Shores residents. Am I
No, I
misinterpreting?
think I think that was happening before I'm asking the question. There was a question about roads. Should the roads be, the infrastructure, the roads be public or private? Public?
Public.
Public. Raise your hand if you like public. Okay, that's overwhelming. Got it. Done. Done with that. Yeah. Right? Now, she made the point that the amendment, like the park space and all that stuff would be public. I was kind of dovetailing on that question and see, yeah, the streets. And people said they overwhelmingly would like the streets to be public. You can have a different opinion, sorry. What's that? The amenities would be public. Yeah. I think we got that.
I got a question.
Right.
On the amenities that we have here in Miami Shores, will we all be tied in together along with this new development and our taxes?
The amenities would be public, and I don't know, it's not a zoning question, that would probably come in a development agreement on how they were maintained. And so I don't necessarily know the answer to that yet.
And you say maintain, so townhouses will be maintained differently than our single-family homes?
No, the private owner would maintain the private house. There, if you were to have a homeowners association, again, this isn't zoning, this is something different, so I don't want to dwell too long on it because it's not relevant, but if you were to have a homeowners association and you were to have public parks, right? Top lots, community gardens, whatever, they were public. The maintenance, who would ever pay for the maintenance of that, would be part of the development agreement. You could negotiate the fact that everybody in Miami Shores paid for the maintenance of that. Or you could negotiate that the homeowners association paid for the maintenance of it and left it open for the public. So that's not a zoning question, but those are the two options that you would have. So that's yet to be determined. That would be determined as an analysis and probably at the time of a site plan.
So normally townhouses do have a homeowners association.
Yes, they do.
And so they all have to come to an agreement, or it can be a big troublemaker, a big problem.
Yeah, there, at the end of the approval process, there would be a development agreement, there would be homeowners documents that would be drawn up, and the subsequent purchasers would be subject to those agreements. Again, not necessarily a zoning issue, and really 2 steps down the line from where we are today, and we can't really get there until we finish these questions. But that's the short answer. So
I got one more question.
All right.
In all this matter, when it comes to our teachers and community people that live here, is that gonna be affordable for us to live in?
One of the comments that that was made very clear to me was that it should be as affordable as an average home in the village. So I would hope so, but that has to do, that has to do a lot with what we do in zoning. So if you, for instance, want a super large unit, right, that makes it much more expensive. And that's a math problem the applicant would go through because it's the cost of land, it's the cost of development, those types of things. So that's why zoning becomes important, because as we digest this, we want to say, I don't know, if you're gonna have a 5,000 square foot unit, it's probably not gonna be very affordable. So we want it to hit that point. You know, you tinker with the unit sizes and those types of things. So somebody else, yes.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry, but you, and then I apologize, I skipped him over.
no, just what you were saying. You mentioned earlier that South Florida is ground zero for the affordable housing crisis, right? And my concern is, things like this can easily become a vehicle for exclusionary zoning, right? Where we are artificially jacking up the ultimate price of that unit. We're in a school right now, and will a teacher be able to reside in one of the units that is eventually produced? The concern is, like, we want everything to look great, and we want bigger units, and we want more green space, but this all artificially jacks up the price in the end, right? And at a certain point, doesn't it become exclusionary zoning, which is something that, we should avoid?
Well, I agree with you. And if you would like to avoid that, that's where we go and we answer these questions. And as we go through the answer to these questions, we start to look at what it might do to, in your questions pointed to the cost of a unit. We kind of evaluate that and try to give you advice. Hey, this would make for a very expensive development, or this would make for a very inexpensive development. And that's why it's critical that we have this interaction so that we can get those types of things out. So the comments that have been made to me over the last several months is that we don't want to make it any more expensive than, say, the average home in the village today. And so that's one of the goals that we're working on. I got to go here, and then I'm going to go to the blue shirt and then the green shirt.
I'm a little confused
Same here.
of the park.
Okay.
If it's a private park, it's only for Miami Shores residents?
No,
And if it's a public park, it's for everybody in the world?
they will all be public parks, and they will all be for everybody in the world, because I don't believe you can exclude anybody in the county or the state from going to a public park. So they'll be open to the public. You may be able to charge for admission, but you can't charge, I don't think you can charge a resident of Miami-Dade County and not charge a resident of Miami Shores. So, but those are legal issues that I believe we're trying to say, well, those are financial things, that's not zoning. So I'm trying to stick to zoning because that's what I'm getting paid to conclude. You're on.
I'm on?
Yeah?
Before we were talking about the streets, and this was what he was saying. If we go with all public streets, then it doesn't give any room for the developer to narrow the streets or whatever, because they gotta meet the standards of the city. And that's gonna drive up the cost right there, because if you ever been in a small area where you have like condos and all the townhouses, that's like a waste of space. Those people who are living there will need parking space and areas to park and all that. But it would give the whoever develops it more leeway if they can develop it as a private street. Then we don't have to worry about maintaining them, the city itself. When we have the nice stone front of my house, we have a big swell, it looks really nice, but the city has to come out and trim the trees, they have to take care of all that stuff. That drives up the cost.
Yeah, so that's.
Well, the community would, and the way they design it, they could do it a little bit different to meet the standards of that.
So what we're trying to do is at this point gauge the interest of public, private streets, and then we put rules around it. Ultimately, that's a decision that you all are gonna have to find out. We're gonna give you recommendations from what we think you said. The argument is, on one side is, if you want them to integrate into the community, then you need basic standards and conform to city rules. And we're putting the city rules together. And if the average street width is X amount of feet, and you want to conform to the community, then perhaps I would suggest their street width should be the same amount, or it looks a little bit different. Green shirt, and then you can go.
Yeah, I didn't want to take up all your time, but the gentleman who asked about the affordability.
Yeah.
I'm a construction lender with a bank, and most of the developers I know are doing workforce housing as a percentage of the total units they're building at site plan approval, and they negotiate a tax rebate or some concession from the municipality or in that they're building, and that's how they create the workforce housing component.
And if that's a direction that we want to go, we can start to add that in to a zoning code. And that's why, again, these meetings are so important, because we get to a point in this presentation where we talk about incentives. And if you want to incentivize somehow, if through your traditional zoning, if you decide to setbacks and whatever, you don't think you hit the price point, you can incentivize more affordable or workforce housing somehow, like you're talking about. So it's part of the zoning conversation that we're getting to. Who thinks that's important? Maybe incentivizing more affordable homes? Okay, smattering. Yes.
So I think, something that would help us all visually, you don't have to draw anything. Right next to Miami Shores is the Preserve townhouse. It's got 98 units. Aerially, they've got lots and lots of parking. They don't have congestion. They don't have the issues. They've got a lot of common space. If you would help us, visualize what we're doing here and what we're talking about compared to the Preserve, because that's been a very successful complex. Also, with their 98 units, the prices are about 30%, 35% of what they are in Miami Shores. And each of, right there across from Publix, or right across from TD Bank, right there on 90th and Biscayne. 90th, the address is 730-ish Northeast 90th Street. They have lots of parking, they have public parks, they have lots of space, they have privacy, and they're holding their values and it's a good alternative.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think that's a super question, because
And
what I'm.
every unit has a garage,
Hold on.
every unit has a garage.
Stick with me. Yeah, what I'm hearing is that we really want to start to visualize what this zoning code is before we formalize the zoning code. So, and there are ways to do that, and we'll talk about that. But let me move on a little bit to the densities. And density is not for debate, so this is really just informational slide. But you can see that, in the top of the screen, that low density single family homes are typically 4 to 10 dwelling units an acre, and we fit in about 6. So we're kind of right in the middle of that. And you can see that townhomes nationally are typically 12 to 18. And so that's really the next step up, the next least dense step up from a single family home to the townhome district. And so you can see that's where we are. We're 13. We're not the garden style stuff. We're not the village cluster, the other kind of medium density things that are 18 to 25 or 15 to 22. We're kind of at 13. And this is an example of what the other communities have done in town. So you can see we're at 13. For Miami Beach is 30. Somebody has to do math for Pinecrest, but it's pretty low. Palmetto Bay is 8.5. Coral Gables is 20. And Miami Springs is 10. So we're kind of at the middle end of the kind of townhomes that integrate into communities relative to density. A floor area ratio, this is a kind of a pain in the butt concept to get, but effectively it tells you what percentage of the lot you can cover with a building. We're suggesting 65% of the lot, not covered, but the square footage of the building is compared to the square footage of the lot. Miami Beach says 0.7, Pinecrest says 0.3. The others don't have numbers to that. We put a floor area ratio number in our residential districts this past summer. A lot of times you use it for commercial because you can measure the coverage of a lot with open space, setbacks, and those types of things. It's another measure that you have that help you evaluate an application as it comes through. And then let me get through this last thing. You might be interested in it. The minimum dwelling unit size. We're saying a minimum here would be 1,200 square feet. The other town, that's a little bit big for what other townhomes are. In fact, I think it's kind of the largest of all the other local examples where maybe the beach is at 1,100, Pinecrest is at 1,000, Palmetto Bay is at 800. Miami Springs is 1,100. So it's large, and I think what that does is it drives up the price of the units, the larger the units. Go ahead.
Question. Us working together here to change the zoning for this new development, why can't we stick with what we have and still develop it? We have multi, right? We have duplex. We have all that in our zoning now, right? And you're taking us, who lived here forever, to help create new. Why can't we stick with what we have and develop from there? Because a lot of us don't understand a lot of these numbers and how you're doing it.
No, I got you. I empathize with you.
As much as we're here to try to work together with you, it is.
Well,
that's why I asked you about the ones in there, because I had a vision there. But also, Ms. Kelly, I don't know what you're talking about are lovely as well. So things like that. We need something to compare to.
I got you.
We can't help you develop new rules.
Let's get a couple. I'm not the developer. I'm the urban planner that's working with the village to put the zoning code in place that the developer will use to implement. There's one glaring hole in your code. You have multifamily, you have residential, you have a comp plan, however, that says townhome, and you don't have a townhome category in their zoning code. So you have to, and I don't know what the timeline on it is, but the time is run out or is running out, develop a townhome category so that somebody can develop to your comp plan. And that's why we're doing this. And so, yes, sir. Yeah, by the way, the existing multifamily is denser than 13 going into. Yes, sir.
Just a clarification. We know what we have for the zoning code. I'm answering her, right? I'm Max Stern for our residences, and we don't have townhouse, but we're also dealing with a much bigger area than anything else we have in the shores. So we're trying to figure out how to set standards so these 28 acres can be developed that are integrated into the community that we have, but also allow that property to be developed at a little bit higher level. And how do we get the two together? They're giving us the opportunity to answer the questions, and that's what this is all about. So.
That's great. I think that's important. We're developing, we're putting these townhome districts in place so that the potential developer can meet the character of this village. And that's critical. Does anybody have any opinions on the unit size? Is 1,200 square foot too small, or is it too large?
Too small.
Okay, too small.
Too small.
What's the number? If it's too small, what number? 3,000, 1,000?
How many stories?
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that.
But that makes the difference. How many stories depends on how wide the unit's gonna be. If they're this big and 4 stories up, that's not acceptable.
It's all part of the zoning, but we gotta take one at a time. That's why we gotta go through all these areas. If this were easy. I'll get somebody else.
I'm sorry, I came from Kendall where there's dozens of townhouse communities. Most of them built at single level. The trick with townhouses, if you don't want to look like you're in just non-stop building, is you put them in 4 or 5 to a group and you separate it with land, open land. You landscape between driveways. You give people a small front yard ahead of the 2 driveway spots that they're entitled to. You create enough visitor parking so people aren't staggered all over the street every time they have a get-together. None of this has been proposed. Having open spaces and top lots and all that is great, but first, you have to construct the living places so they look decent. You're talking about 1,000 square feet. I lived in 1,000 square feet in 1 story. It was great. If I went up 3 stories, I could have had 3,000 square feet in the same space.
Well, what do you want?
It's a question of how wide the units are gonna look. I can't.
But we did that
visualize
already. Wait, hold on. I'm on slide 44 of 70, right? And you're on slide 60 of 70. So let me get through because I can't ask all the questions at once. They are all at once on that survey if you want to fill that in. But let me get through the questions in the order that I planned. Fact, I did talk about unit width. Or that, so we did do that, and I don't know if you commented on it or not, but feel free to on your sheet. So far we've got large, anybody for smaller unit size? So it's not gonna guess, so anybody got a question on this or an opinion? Yeah.
26 years old.
Yeah.
Just got married, we have no kids. What size unit do you want to move into? Nice community like Miami, assuming that you may move to a larger unit later on. I'm not sure. But I think you have to be careful to not see ourselves. And I've been in Miami Shores for 25 years. I have a good sized house, a nice sized yard. But if I were a young couple who wanted to move to Miami Shores, raise a family in Miami Shores, that might be my starter. And it can be small.
That's great. That's a great comment, and from anecdotally, I think from the numbers that we look at in the industry, the young folks today are not the young folks of my generation or your generation, and their desires are a little bit different. They're also working in an environment that's a little bit different. The housing is so much more expensive today than it was, when we bought our first homes in here. I bought my first home in 1997. It was $230,000. My guys probably 15 times more now. I couldn't afford to buy my home right now at 56 years old. And I'm assuming that those examples that we bought in the 70s are the same. So I think the young folks are willing to. You did 28 acres? You can develop a CR district. But I'm sure that they would like smaller units because it makes it more affordable. Okay, that's right. So, again, I got a mixed opinion on that. Yes, ma'am.
I think I just want to ask a clarifying question, or maybe a clarifying statement. The current zoning code we're working to map out is not just specifically for the 28 acres, correct?
No, it is specifically for the 28 acres. There is no other CR land in the village. If anybody can.
So if at any point there is new land, will we then create new codes, or will this code then be used for that new land?
If the village were to decide to convert other land to CR, it would conform to the regulations that we're making now. But at this point in time, the only land that will be zoned CR is the land that we have on this map.
Okay, and then the next question, we're discussing townhomes, CR, because we don't currently have any, but for this specific land, if the village decides not to build townhomes, is that also the opportunity?
You can't do that. The village is not a developer. The village sets the rules for the development. The village can't decide to build townhomes or not build townhomes. That's a private property right, and the applicant will decide what they want to build. The village has decided through its comp plan that townhomes are appropriate. It could change its comp plan, but that's relatively complicated. The comp plan is brand new, so townhomes need to be zoned. Should an applicant come in and want to develop all single-family homes, I believe they can do that. Should they want to not develop townhomes at all, I believe they can do that. But we have to put together a townhome category in the zoning district because we're mandated to it by the comprehensive plan.
Okay, yeah, I was just clarifying, because I believe that as the questions are coming up, it almost seems as if the decision has already been made versus us having the conversation now, and I think the misconception is that we don't have a say, but we're trying to figure it out right now without having visuals, which doesn't, offer much consistency, but I think right now, people are trying to understand what they're able to vote on or make a suggestion on, but they just need visuals to be able to understand what the difference
Yeah,
are.
the visuals are coming. So the only, what we don't have a say in is that we can't get rid of townhomes. We have to develop a townhome category. What we do have a say in is what that townhome category looks like. And it has about 13 different categories that we need to put numbers to that cumulatively form the look and feel of the townhome district. And once we answer those 13 questions and put numbers to them, then the applicant, whomever it is, will be able to come in and match those and develop. Yes, as we get to flesh these numbers out, we have to we'll put graphics to it. And that's, again, why I thought a more collaborative process where you put graphics first would be important. But it's hard to put a lot of graphics to numbers that barely exist at this point in time. I'm gonna take Maria and then you and Beth. Oh, you got Mike, go first.
Okay, I'm concerned when you talk about the character of Miami Shores. I have lived there a long time, and townhomes and that is not something I'm too familiar with. It seems to me if you were concerned about the character of Miami Shores, in these 5-acre parcels, there should be 80% homes and 20%.
Okay, that's an interesting,
Put
no, I got you.
Put something on it. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
let me check that out. It's a really interesting comment. What the comp plan tells us we can do now is you can have any of these three housing types, or you can mix them together. But what it doesn't say is if you have to have certain percentages of them. So let me check out the ability to do that. It's a good question. Got me stuck. Yes.
Well, just following up with that, when this community residential designation was created in the comp plan amendment last year, it says that the land use designation is intended to accommodate a coordinated, integrated, and balanced range of residential uses. It talks about the single family at the 6 dwelling units per acre, and then it talks about the multifamily townhouse attached at 13 dwelling units per acre, and it talks about the farm. But I think that the emphasis of this tonight is we're focusing on townhomes, but this district need the single family and the multifamily. And when you talk about incentives, if you want a variety of things in this area, there would be, I believe, a mechanism where you could put in the regulations incentives to have a variety rather than a just homogeneous either townhome, single family, or multifamily.
Yeah, that's why we're here. And you're right, we can have these things in the district, but it doesn't say how many that we can have, or it doesn't mandate, and that's a good point. When we talk about incentivization, perhaps we'll check this out, there's a way to incentivize a mix of uses. Not step back into something big, not a mix of uses, a mix of housing types. Been around at least long enough to know that that might have been. So, and I immediately caught, which means I gotta check. Okay. I got it. All right, hold on, I think I'm getting to something you'll like. Building height, setbacks, building roofs and frontage. So this goes into what you guys were talking about, right? You've got a width of a building, a height of a building, right? You can't really tell what your unit size is until you know the envelope that you've got to put it in. So let me tell you about what we proposed in comparison to what other townhome districts are that have integrated into their communities. We're suggesting a height of 35 feet and 3 stories. Miami Beach has a height of 40. Pinecrest has a height of 2 with 32 feet. Palmetto Bay 40 with 2 stories. Coral Gables 45. Miami Springs 35. Abutting units may vary by 5 feet or more. Our groupings are a max of 8 or 13 units with courtyards, up to 10% pairs. So we want 3 or more, max of 8, up to 10% to be pairs. Miami Beach doesn't count it. Pinecrest doesn't count it. Palmetto Bay doesn't count it. Coral Gables makes you have breaks every 100 feet, variations in massing, and Miami Springs 150 feet building height. So yeah, I'm sorry, Pinecrest and Palmetto Bay 240 feet building height. So that's where it goes into Rutledge. And then we talk about frontage. We're saying that streets, 2 streets, or open space with pedestrian connectivity, crossings, and lighting. So we need them to face the streets, and those streets need to have open space, pedestrian connectivity, sidewalks, crossings of the roads, and lighting. Miami Beach has a 0 front setback, where they have a necessity for a public-private parking agreement. Pinecrest has direct frontage on a public street, or compliant private streets, what they do down there in their wisdom, is to say that the private streets need to essentially conform with the public streets, but the developer pays for it. Entrance vestibules in Palmetto Bay, street fronting and street massing to advance the pedestrian scale, and similar in the other 2 places. Okay, so that might be teeing you up for something good. What do you got?
My thought of saying this here, each one of those have a model that's been developed and they're already there. Is there any way you can get pictures of those so we can actually see what the models, what it looked like?
Hold on. Yes, there is a way. I can show you. They're not great. I mean, I can do better pictures, but these are the cities we compared them with. Those, right? They're varying in height with what we proposed by about 5 feet. These are generally 5 feet taller. They all adjust the streets. They all have variation. They all come in groups of 240 square feet or less linearly, which equates to.
So the numbers you showed us, that these are the models?
Yes, ma'am. And so, yeah, we can flesh these out as we go through the thing. And again, I think your point is well taken. You want to see the development before necessarily the zoning is put to it, because it helps you visualize. I got you. Yes, I agree with you. We're gonna work on that. We're gonna get that. We're gonna work to get that done. What I need to do though is put some numbers, put some flesh on the skeleton so that I know what to get as we put that together. You had a question.
Can you put those numbers together and then present it to us instead of us trying to help you make numbers of what we can't make sense of?
Yeah, absolutely. Hold on. You want to go?
Because I think that's the only way you're going to be.
What I'm concerned with is
the fact that we're gonna wind up with a bunch of cookie cutters over there. And cookie cutters are not meant for Miami Shores. And if I start seeing cookie cutters, I'm gonna start seeing attorneys. Because I'm not gonna have it. I've lived in Miami Shores since 1971, by the way. My name is Jerry Vance. I live at 236 on 102nd Street.
Oh, yeah.
My wife and I raised 3 children. And another thing I noticed on these units, haven't even considered people of my age.
Hold on. What units?
The 3-story units. You're gonna put elevators in them?
That's not a zoning issue, that's developer issue.
Well, we need to know that. We need to know it from this point.
Well,
You're
hold on.
sort of putting the cart before the horse.
No. Let's take a step back. The way the development process works, comp plan, which is done, zoning code, which is not really, we're more at the beginning, the end, site plan. The developer cannot come up with a site plan until they have a zoning code. You wouldn't be able to know what the site plan looks like, so the cart is in front of us. The zoning code comes first. Now, if you want to enter into a collaborative process with a potential applicant, then you could work all those things out and put a zoning code around it. But that's not the approach that we are taking right now. We're doing it the traditional way, zoning first, elevators are not in the zoning code, they're not in the, right, so that comes later.
Make it 1 story long, make it 1 story long.
Got it.
Okay, don't, because I got news right now, I would not go out and buy a house that had 3 stories into it and all the steps.
Right.
I'm not that age anymore.
I know.
Okay. Thank you, I agree with you.
I went up, my parents have a house with steps in it, and I went up at my age, and like, I can't live here anymore. All right, yes, ma'am, you want to go? All right, folks, I see I'm losing interest here, and Dolphin game's about to start, so I'm gonna kind of walk a little bit through these. I'm gonna let you ask your question, the young lady over there ask the question, then we'll kind of push through these and get some comment. This is more the beginning of the process than the end. We're not gonna be done until everybody feels that they've had their say. We are going to work on this iteratively and build consensus until we feel like we no longer can get consensus. And at that point, we'll be ready to push it to the next level, which is decision making. But we're not in a hurry. We are gonna listen. If we can't get it done in this meeting, we'll come back and do another one and another one and another one until we're done. So go ahead.
Quick comment, just as you build some model or something for us to look at, the southwest portion of the property where there are maybe 5 lots that aren't included, I would just worry if there's 3 stories, whether that really towers over those existing people. And I don't know whether they would or wouldn't, but I would want to see it and consider it.
What we're gonna do is put a premium on buffering the single family residential. So whatever we go there, whatever comes out of this code, I'm not quite sure what it is yet, but we'll definitely buffer the single family residential. So you will be minimally, as much as possible, minimally impacted by that. Dan, you had a question, and you in the back.
Yes, I have a comment, and it's regarding the setbacks.
Okay.
The front setback for our single-family houses is around 25 feet. That's why we have beautiful gardens. When I see on this paper, the proposal is 5 feet. You cannot develop a nice garden in 5 feet. So we lose the character of the village.
Okay.
So in regards to that, I see a rear setback of 0. Does that mean that we're gonna have a body townhouses one back to the other one? And I remember when I just moved to the village like 10 years ago, there was a beautiful graphic on the building department with a single family that had the front setback, the side setback, and the back setback. And it was very easy for people who didn't understand this to understand. So it would be nice to have a comparison graphics of what does these zoning requirements are for a single property or for a townhome property, a stagger of a group. And people need to start understanding what does it mean, the building that is determining abutting properties and what is the property size, like graphically speaking, that would be great. The other thing is about the step backs on the second floor and third floor. Because remember, green areas can be developed on the higher portions of the house. You don't want a wall that is 35 feet in front of your house. My house, I only have like 8 feet of interior clear space. If you put a house that is 35 feet next to me, they're gonna be looking at my backyard I lose my privacy. So you can think, yeah, you can have a one story that complies with this certain setback, but as soon as you have a second floor, you need to step back so you can have an angle view from the sidewalk that hides these higher properties within our community. And we can all live happily together with townhomes, single family, even we can have a small size buildings and we can all live together, but it has to be properly designated. This goes beyond what a house is. This goes, it's an urban planning. This is not size. This is the size of Midtown before Midtown was developed. So we have to go beyond thinking of a number. We need to start thinking on sections. How many cars park? 2 parking spaces, that's 60 feet. So you need an entrance. So what is your frontage of your house, of your townhome? So are you gonna give green space? So all of these things, they can be graphically set and expressed. So that's my thought.
Thank you, that's great, I agree with you 100%, I think that's where we're aiming on. So your thoughts are that a 5-foot front setback is much too small. Does anybody agree with that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, everybody, almost everybody, different handful of people in that.
Joe,
Hold on.
Okay.
You can just see where we've compared it with other communities, that their setbacks are much more generous than what we're suggesting. Go ahead.
I have a question about along the lines of the setbacks. We brought a tape measure, right? And that ceiling, what is the height there? Is that 14 feet, did you say? We need to know how high that is because a 5-foot setback or a 10-foot setback, are they gonna have sidewalks and then swales? Do you know what's required? Because it doesn't say, if they said a 10-foot setback, but we're gonna have sidewalks, and then if there's gonna be another 7-foot swale, that's different. We don't know what's built into that.
Okay, I understand your point. So, right, we have the public realm, which is the street. There'll be public property, the street section may have a planting strip, it may have an XYZ sidewalk, it may have a swale on the other side of it. Then you get to private property. So we'll graphic that out so that you can, that's a great point. That's how kind of these things are all integrating together. Okay, I'm gonna try to wrap this up in 2 hours, and like I said, so all right. So the consensus we've got so far is a larger setbacks, right? Both in the front and the rear. Right, and the side. Okay. Now, another thing, architectural feature, we have step back, vertical articulation, corner condition, roof decks, and those types of things. We just put some rules in place over the summer for step backs and vertical articulation and those types of things. They don't necessarily exist in some of the other communities, but they do exist here. We were likely going to try to replicate the numbers that we have here, but they're tweakable if needed. But what I've heard thus far is that we don't want monoliths. We want the buildings to articulate. So we need some mechanism by which to move the buildings forward and backwards so that they're not, so they're a little bit more visually appealing. We understand that. We're good. I think we got that down. These are just kind of graphics of how those things play out, the larger setbacks or building articulation or the step backs in the long run. So, we'll shoot at things of that nature. We've talked about corner conditions, which frankly bore me, but, they're kind of done in some places and not, I don't know if they're critically important at this point in time. We've got a lot of other issues to deal with.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
You said I was next.
Oh, I'm sorry. I totally apologize. I wish I got in a hurry. Yeah, thanks for bringing that to my attention.
All right, I don't know how many of these people actually live here. I live on 112th Street.
All right.
And East Avenue. I'm really by this.
You're at ground zero.
Yes. And I'm worried about traffic. Because right now I get all the school traffic in what street they go, not 111, not the main street, 112. Everybody goes down our street. Now, once these people up, where are they coming out of their property?
All right. Good one. You're not gonna like this answer.
I don't think so, I'm done.
No, hold on, don't say that.
And
Because,
I
hold
will-
on, let me answer your question. It's not a bad answer. pedestrian, it's just, we're not to the point. You don't do traffic at the time of zoning, you do traffic at the time of the site plan. So traffic will be thoroughly analyzed. The applicant, they'll analyze their impact to schools, they'll analyze their impact on water, impact on sewer, those types of things. And the applicant will be asked to mitigate their negative impacts. That doesn't mean very much because there's very little chance to turn down the development. The sad fact is traffic is never getting better. The county is growing. Even if your village doesn't grow another person, you're still going to get more traffic because everything else around you is developing. I know it's a terrible answer, but it's mostly true. Ma'am, you had a question? Yes. Okay. Let me see where we got here. This is important. We're talking about streetscape, landscaping, parking, loading, and lighting, and those types of things. And they're critical because that's where we get into the realm between the public and the private. What we're suggesting is typical with the street: 5-foot landscape strip, 6-foot sidewalk, trees spaced 20 feet, 85% of the road coverage shaded. In our landscaping requirements, we're suggesting front yards required with 1 tree, 3 palms, max 25% palms, and specifying the height of those types of things. I think some of the other communities, Pinecrest, Coral Gables, in Miami Springs particularly, do put a premium on their streetscapes and their landscaping. They've done a very good job of it. Miami Springs, oddly enough, doesn't have regulations for that, and it's one of those tree areas, aside from here, that you'll see in the county. So is Coral Gables, so is Pinecrest, so is Palmetto Bay. Miami Beach has its own limitations. I think what we're saying is we're kind of matching those limitations or not exceeding them. And I'm going to just generalize. I'm assuming that you want to be heavy on the landscaping and the pedestrian activity and those types of things. So you want to match or exceed what some of the state-of-the-art work is out there in other communities. Is that something we can? Yeah. Got it. All right. Got it. Any comments on anybody? Please.
Mature trees that provide shade and not palm trees would be preferable.
Yes.
And yes, more mature trees.
Mature trees, yes. Native plants, native, right? Native. Got the graphics of some of the things that you can do. This one example on the left is a little bit much more on the street. More urbanly landscaped with potted plants, and then you get to another example. Yes, sir.
I mean, it's all nice, and I love the trees too, but I've just noticed a lot of my neighbors who have big trees, no parking space, the trees get into their cars. They take every opportunity to cut back those trees. Because they don't like the trees falling on their cars. I know everyone doesn't like to hear that, but that's what I see people do. So that's why I think the palm trees are a good alternative to big wide trees. Because if you have to live with the trees, it's one thing looking at them, but it's a different thing living with them.
Very good. I mean, one of the ways you can deal with that is through tree pruning ordinances and things like that to be very strict so that we keep people. Anybody, you had a comment? No? Anybody else? Trees? Parking? Anybody in the parking? 2 spaces for every unit, 1 visitor space for 10 units. No? How many spaces per unit? 4. 4 spaces per unit? Okay. All right, who wants more than 2 spaces per unit? Somebody, tell me why. Somebody, who wants to shut? Hold on, go ahead, so they don't park in the street. No street parking. No. Can you park on the street right now for your house?
They do. You need to come down 112th Street and you'll see.
Where are you? Okay, but is it illegal to park in front of you? No.
I don't think so.
They're in the street. Yes, on the street.
Okay, so we gotta work that out. I don't think it's illegal to park in the street right here. Go ahead.
Okay, so You have a unit, as you propose now, of 1,200 square feet. That means that you have minimum, you could fit 3 bedrooms there. So when you have 3 bedrooms, you have a husband and a wife, or couple and couple, and then you have kids. Those kids grown up, and at 16 years old, you give them a car. Where do they park? Because you don't have 2 empty bedrooms. And you need to think that it's not always kids. Little kids that are living in those other 2 bedrooms. They grow up.
And what unit size would you prefer?
No, I'm telling you,
No, I-
1,200 square feet as you have it now,
Got
it could be 3 cars.
Got it, okay,
Easy for
great, so you think 3 is a good number?
3 to 4.
3 or 4 is a good
yes.
number, okay, perfect.
Minimum, and the visitors, what you have is too little.
How- One unit, so you figure 1 for 5 units? One visitor space for 5?
1 for every 2.5 units, something
Okay.
like that.
1 for every 2.5, okay. Here, yes, sir.
They has about 150 units, townhouses. They're all different. He has a 1-car garage. He can park his car behind that. He also has a space. There are some houses that have 4 parking spots, but 1 is designated as a guest. So it's scattered around. So when you're visiting, you can find a spot.
Yeah, okay, that's right, so we're talking about spreading the visitors units out around the community.
So if you have 150 units maybe, and you have maybe 20, 30.
Okay, and these are just graphic examples how they can be done. You can see there's urban examples where you have parking on the street. You can see there's suburban or kind of integrated examples where you may have larger setbacks and garages, either to the front and the rear. Or you can see there's kind of suburban examples where you have kind of almost private parking that don't park parallel, but park head. Last, because we're running out of time and I'm on 66 of 75. We're focused on innovative design. We can talk about promoting, as the gentleman who just left said, age-friendly community initiatives. We can talk about land use patterns and density bonuses. We can talk about environmental issues and more trees and all the environmental design aspects that go with it. And then, parking doesn't have to necessarily be ugly. You can hit in the sky, so we can talk about that. So, just real quickly, if you're talking about incentives, are there any, what would you want to incentivize? Would you want to incentive, I guess that goes back to the conversation we had earlier, larger streets, more landscaping, smaller units, affordable housing, is there anything that sticks out that you absolutely want to have and you would give an applicant something should they come in and more landscaping, incentivize landscaping? Okay, anything else?
Something that increases our taxes. I want anything that's gonna cost us more money.
I mean, it's interesting though, like a development here could lower your tax. It depends, but I mean, it's hard to see how many increases tax. You know what? When you live in a high quality community, like you live in, it's one of the highest quality communities in all of South Florida, and when you provide the services that you provide and you provide the aesthetic that you provide, that costs money, right? And you can't get this without taxes. And you guys, when I look at all the cities and where your tax rate, you guys are providing a really unique character for not a whole lot of money. And you should be really proud of yourself. It seems that you've done a fantastic job of doing that. So I got about 6 minutes left. If anybody wants to-
Question.
Yeah,
Are
there you go.
are you requiring garages on any of these units? Because that would certainly help with the parking plan. If you have a garage, a 2-car garage in the front, you pull 2 cars in the garage and then you have 2 spaces also in front.
All right, we can consider that. That's a
What
good-
about in the back? Are there gonna be any alleyways? Is there gonna be any parking in the back? The garage is gonna be in the back or in the front.
Got it. All things we can consider. All things we can consider.
But currently,
No, no, not as of yet. We are not requiring garages and we are not requiring, say, alleyways in the back. So
Can we consider putting that?
Yes, absolutely. We will put that as part of the considerations as we do our work going forward. Okay, if anybody wants to, if there's anything that you want to say, we'll take the last round of questions. I will stick around with our group, and whoever wants to stick around as late as anybody wants to stay this evening to ask whatever questions that you have. I don't want to shortcut your time. Again, we are more close to the beginning than the end. We're not going to be done till you feel that you've had your say and that you've been listened to, and that we have consensus on as many of these categories up here that we can possibly have. And again, when I feel that there's no more consensus to be built, then I'll recommend that we go to, we put it up in front of the decision makers. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Joe, I think from what I hear from the people is that everybody seems to be in agreement about the basics of keeping that character of the shores. And if I may summarize a few things so that everybody can see if we're all in agreement, and it is taxes, larger sizes of homes and of lot will actually bring more taxes to the shores, so larger sizes. Green is very important, and not only green meaning along the major thoroughfares, but also in front of your house, which means larger setbacks, privacy, which means separation, at least with the neighbors in the back. Also, what is public versus public? I know there was a discussion about that, but it seems that maybe the public ground may also help into maintaining the streets for the longer and have the shores to be still homogeneous. I think that its size, height, it's a concern also. So those are things that I think that it seems that the community are talking about, which is important for us. And I think the mayor also wants to say something.
Excellent summary. Thank you. Mayor, you're the last one, Mayor.
All right. On a slightly, or on a topic that we haven't talked about yet, my concern is between this proposed HOA and the village. If you haven't driven to the Westwood previous golf course, you should do that. You'll find that the front gate is falling down. You will not be happy with the condition of the facility, which was built by Lennar. If you drive to the RAL and look at their current project that they have just finished, naturally, when they just finish it, it looks good. The difference between Westwood and this project is this is in a city or a village called Miami Shores, and we have a code. Is that code going to be applicable to the people that live on this property, in this development? And I hope that we will put in that it is. There are things, we have a good vacation rental policy. That needs to be enforced there as well as in the village. It's illegal to leave your car up on blocks in the village. It should be illegal to have a car on blocks there. So there's a place for an HOA. There are swimming pools that will need to be cleaned. But the difference here is that when the HOA fails to do that, which unfortunately occurs in a decent percentage of these properties, then at least in Miami Shores, we have something hopefully to fall back on. And that's the code that you all by and maintain your own homes by. And I would like to see that we force this particular group to maintain those same standards there. Thank you.
We can clap for the mayor. All right, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. We hit the darn. Oh, Ezra, you got 30 seconds.
I just want to say a quick thank you to Ms. Mathis, to Nelly Mathis that made this available for us tonight. Thank you, Ms. Mathis.
All right, we'll stick around, and if anybody has any questions, we're ready to answer. Thank you.